So the second game we have for this episode is Mord I'm Arosa.
And it's designed by Alessandro Zucchini. The artist is Oliver Richtberg and Tobias Schweiger. Published by Competo?
I'm not really sure, actually.
Yeah, there's a Competo / Marketoy, and then a comma with the Zoch Verlag.
That might be it. It's in my bag over there, so we won't look.
Actually, I think it says Zoch Verlag on the front of it.
Yeah, I think that is it.
So I'd assume that's what it is.
So this is a game that came out a few years ago. I played it a couple of years ago at Dice Tower Con. I recently got it in the Origins Math Trade. Shrink wrapped. I was very excited. Played it with these guys. We'll talk about it in a minute. The game, though, is essentially, if you've never seen it, is a cube tower of 7 floors or 8 floors, I think. 7 floors. And the top floor is smaller, then they get bigger and bigger as they go down. And what happens is each player has all these clue tokens that you hold in front of you. You're going to play the game in 2 phases, really. The first phase is really just an extension of the setup. You're going to have these 2 red victim markers. The whole game, by the way, is there's a murder, and you're trying to basically blame other people by making their clues seen on the floor of the victims or around them. So what happens is, I'm just going to only talk about mechanisms here.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to give everybody clues. You're going to set up the tower. You have this little board off to the side that has like a image of the tower and 7 floors, spots to put a victim where you found them. So the first thing you do is somebody's going to drop these 2 victim tokens into the tower. These tokens, every token in the game is just a square. Once they're in there, then each player is going to go around and say where they think the victims are. They might announce like floor 6 and they pop it up or whatever. And essentially, if you are correct, you'll take the victim and put it on the sheet on that floor. So you'll put it on like say you found them on floor 6, you would put them on the space for floor 6, and then you would keep going around. If you're wrong, you have to actually add cubes to the tower. And then you do start the game with 2 cubes in the tower from every player, in addition to the 2 victims. Once both the victims have been found, then you move on to Act 2, which is like the meat in most of the game, and where what you're trying to do is you call out one of 2 actions. You're either going to search for clues or you're going to cover your tracks. When you search for clues, you're going to announce a floor. You're going to pick it up. You're going to say, or before you pick it up, you say, I think Eric and Matt both have clues there. You pick it up. If you're right, the players that you called out have to put a number of clue tokens from their reserve equal to the clue tokens that are on that floor. So if Eric had 2 on that floor, on floor 6, he's going to take his 2 cubes from his reserve, put them on the actual player board, or the board with all the victim and the clue tokens and stuff. Then, for everybody who called out that was wrong, you actually have to add a cube in of yourself. So if I called out both of them and I was wrong about Matt, but Eric was there, Eric puts his cubes from reserve out, and then I have to put an additional cube in the tower. Regardless of what happens, you're going to take all the cubes off that floor, put the building back together, and then drop all the cubes one at a time in the top. We like to announce it like, here goes a gray cube, here's a white cube, here's a blue cube, and you want to listen to where they fall down in this tower so that you can generate an idea, like a visual idea of what cubes are on which floor. The second thing you can do is, if it's your turn and you think you got a lot of cubes on a floor, you can bust open, like say I'm going to cover my tracks on floor 5. You open it up, and for every cube that you have on that floor, you get to remove a cube from the actual investigation track, the board that's out in the middle, for each cube. So if I had 3, I get to remove up to 3 from the board, but only on the same floor. Then I'll pick up all my cubes and add them back to the tower, etc. So as the game goes on, cubes are getting added to the tower, but no cubes are ever being removed from the tower. And eventually, either one of two conditions will be met to end the game. Either one player will have 10 cubes on the investigative track, or they will run out of cubes in their reserve. At that point, the game ends, and then you get points. You're going to score 3 points for having a cube on the floor that a victim is on, 2 for having a cube on a floor that's adjacent to the victim, and then 1 for a cube that's not adjacent or on the same floor. And actually, whoever has the lowest score is going to be the winner. Eric, let's start with you. What did you think of this? He played it once. He talked about it.
We played twice.
No. He played it once, wasn't too impressed.
All right.
Played it the second time, we waited to talk. Let's see what you
All
think.
right. I liked it a little bit better, but, it wasn't my favorite game. The look of it's nice. It does have good table presence. The gameplay was okay for me. The theme, I did like it a lot, and the storyline, I did read that, and it made sense. But yeah, I mean, it was just okay for me. I would say that playing it with more players, there is a lot more to kind of keep track of. And sometimes, of course, if you're in an area that has a lot of noise or you have some distractions,
Dogs barking.
dogs barking, it makes it even more so. So you're like, all right, Tim's on level 3 and 6, and Melissa's on 5 and 2, and Matt's on 6, 3, and 1, or whatever, So
You
there's
think
a
they
lot
are.
right, or this is where you think. So it is a lot to keep track of sometimes. So
That is an interesting thing because you're trying to keep track of it. If there's more players, you almost need to pick and choose a couple of people to keep track of rather than keep track of everyone.
or a lot of times I was just like, all right, Matt goes right before me. I'll try to just listen for his stuff.
That's fair.
The ones he throws back in.
What did you think, Matt?
I wasn't a super big fan of this. I mean, it wasn't awful. As far as the gameplay, I wasn't keeping track of anything. I was kind of just like, if someone dropped something, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's on floor 5. I just listened for more floor 5s.
Oh, so you want, instead of trying to keep track of a lot of different people, you're just like, all right, that's floor 5, and now I'm also trying to find anybody else that hits 4 or 5.
Right. So, and because it was just too much to keep track of, I think for as short of a game, trying to keep track of everything that's going on, I didn't think it was worth it. It was late, so I could have had something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
We had dogs barking. And it was kind of hard to listen. But, yeah, I don't know. And dropping the cubes in, I guess if you wanted to really throw the game, you could. Because as you're dropping people's cubes in, if you wanted to, you could almost toss them into the first and second floor. I don't know if people would do that. That's like poor gamesmanship, but
Yeah.
it could be done.
I think it's bad strategy anyway. Because, well, let me backtrack real quick. The game is not fun when the victims are on the 6th and 7th floor. The game does not work out as well as it should.
Because there's a lot more people that just end up getting on the 6th and 7th floor.
Right.
For one.
And the interesting thing about the reason I say it was bad strategy is because just because there's a lot of people on the floor doesn't mean you actually want to call those people out. Because
depending on where you're at, if you're winning.
If you're winning, sure. But
Right.
the other thing is if you're losing, because you either win or you lose, obviously there is no
Right.
second place in this game.
Mm-hmm.
If you are losing and somebody else is clearly going to end the game if 3 more of their cubes get on the board, you don't want to call them out, even if you think like 5 of their cubes are on floor 7, because it doesn't help you to give them more points. I could kind of see what you're saying, though. Like, there's almost too much to think about for the game length and what the game is.
Right.
But if you want to get down into the actual strategy of it, then, trying to just put as many cubes on the investigation track isn't the best way to go.
Right.
Almost in all cases, I think.
Unless you're winning.
Unless you're winning,
Right.
yes. That's the only case. Like, if you're winning and you have 0 points on the board, you don't care who you called out. You want the game to end, actually, as fast as possible. But then again, you may want to try to call out the person who's next to you in points so that you don't, in one turn, go above them.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to give points to them. You don't just want to make the person who's already losing badly lose even worse to finish the game, because it may turn really fast on you if somebody calls out the right floor. But I don't know.
Now, you said you played at a convention with
A lot of noise.
well, and a larger player count. I forgot how many players you said you played with. Did you remember?
No, we played it with 4.
Oh, just 4. Okay.
Yeah, it's only,
Does it want to go up to 4?
actually, I think it might be 7.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought you played with like a bunch of people.
No,
2 to 6.
2 to 6. So I don't know. Like, I thought with 4 it's fine. With 3 it's not as good. It does kind of it is better if you have a lot more players, because there's more stuff in the tower and you can kind of guess.
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay, well, I know that Eric is on floor 5. I don't know who else is there, but I'm gonna guess like Matt is too, out of the 6 people at the table. And maybe you're wrong and you put another cube in the tower. That's fine. the game is made to where it will progress to an end.
Right.
I mean, yeah, there is that mechanism where you can cover your tracks, but I don't know. The covering your tracks isn't as useful as you might think it is because you have to know that you have cubes on that floor in the first place.
And have points on the board.
Right. I mean, I guess you can remove cubes. Like, for instance, if Eric goes, drops a bunch of cubes of mine into the 7th floor, then Matt goes, calls me out, puts 4 cubes on the map, and then drops them back in the tower. If they happen to be on the 5th, 7th, 6th, and 7th floor again, I can cover my tracks to kind of remove some of those solely to make the game not end as quick. But for the most part, I mean, I don't think covering your tracks is that useful. Unless you just, for some reason, know that a bunch of your cubes are on the same floor as a victim.
Right.
But then again, it's like, am I putting too much thought and strategy into this type of game?
No, I don't think so. You should always play the game, strategically when you can.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you think about the listening aspect of it? Because there's not a lot of games that do that.
No, it is unique on that point, and it is a unique game, and there's not another game that comes to mind that kind of uses the same stuff and uses your other senses such as listening.
Yeah.
So unique in that aspect, and it was good to play. I did enjoy, overall, I enjoyed it, but I did want to play it. Whether I want to play it, more, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is a game I want to play with the same people a whole bunch, but it's definitely a game I'll bust out with
new players and stuff.
New players, non-gamers. Yeah. I think it's a good light. It's light enough, but it still has a little bit of game to it.
Right.
I wouldn't play it with deaf people.
Deaf people.
Yeah.
Old people.
Old people.
Yeah.
Play my parents. No.
Can you do that again? I
didn't hear that one. Well, I guess that's a problem. Anyway, anything else? Final thoughts?
No.
Nope, not for me.
All right, that's Mordheim Arosa.